Well, I can't put it off any longer. Hello fellow CNCnutz and welcome. Today I'm going to start disassembling the carriages here and replace them with my new carriages that I've built. I've got my trusty 13mm spanner here, so let's get started. I'm starting by removing the stepper motor and rack and pinion drive. This comes off by simply removing the spring and a single bolt. Next I need to disassemble the Super PID. I'm going to be reinstalling this on the machine, so I don't want to actually remove it any more than I have to. I just need to get it disconnected from the carriage and swing it out of the way so that I can work on removing that Y carriage. Next to go are the bottom bearings. That will release the carriage so I can get it off the rails. Lastly, I need to remove the retaining rods that connect the Y-axis to this carriage, or should I say the Y-rail to this carriage. There's a set of bolts back and front. Next I'm using a car jack, just a trolley jack there, to lift it up so that I can simply remove the carriage. Using the trolley jack worked out as quite good at the end of the day because it allowed me to easily adjust the height. Now the rail needs to come off, and it's simply a matter of just undoing those bolts and sliding it out. I'm then removing the bolts of it and then putting them back into the new longer rail that I made in previous episodes. The great thing about it is it just simply slides into place. Once it's in place, I just go through and tightening it down. Now I will need to go back and make sure the rail has gone in nice and straight, but at this stage I'm happy just to get it bolted in place and get that carriage to where it needs to be. And there you can see how useful it is having the jack, being able to lift it. Now I've encountered a problem here in that because of the angle everything's on, as you can see the X-rail is now installed on the new Y carriage higher than previously, it will not allow me to set the bottom bearing. So what I need to do was start disassembling the Y carriage on the left hand side of the machine. I removed the bottom bearings and the stepper motor, but it's still giving me a bit of a problem dealing with it. I was able to get the bottom bearing on the right hand side in place and then started to remove the left hand carriage. Now these bolts are simply a matter of winding on a spare nut, locking it to the existing nut in place, and then that allows me to draw the rod out. Now other things I have on this side here is the cable management system, which I didn't have on the right hand side, and I had to deal with that as well. Once it was removed, I could then start assembling the new Y carriage for the left hand side. This of course is the steel piece that connects the Y carriage to the X-rail. Again, the rail had to be removed, the nuts and bolts removed from the old one, and then I put them back into the new one. you can see how easy it is to push the new rail into place. Using an aluminium extrusion here makes this job really easy. Then got a straight edge, and once I remove the emergency stop switch, I'm able to start tightening down bolts, ensuring that the rail is nice and straight when I did it. Just giving it a final adjustment there and tightening down the remaining nuts. Now the new rail can go in place, and this is going to be a bit easier because the X rail is now at the right height. Next I had to come up with a new method for holding the cable management system in place because it could no longer go on top of the Y rail. I've just attached it to the end of the Y rail and onto the X rail there. Next I had to come up with a method of retaining the connector block for the stepper motors, so I bolted on little blocks, screwed on the connector blocks. Next I'm putting on the stepper motors, get them bolted into place, and lastly it's just a matter of wiring them up. I took photos of these before I started so I knew exactly how they were wired. And there we have it, a rolling carriage. It took about 4 hours work to get this here running again, and at that stage it was only a rolling chassis. I got my Y carriages replaced and the rails, and they actually probably took only about half the time. The rest of the time was taken up figuring out how I was going to remount the Super PID, how to reconnect my cable management system here because it could no longer go back exactly where it was before, and also how I was going to reconnect the connectors that connect my stepper motors to the cabling. It's really surprising how long it takes to work out those small items. Now, of course, I only had the rolling chassis. It's completely out of adjustment at that stage. So on Tuesday, I came back into the workshop and I completely disassembled my X carriage here. It was long overdue for maintenance, and it was a great opportunity because I really didn't have a choice. It all had to be readjusted. I gave it a good clean, readjusted it, and made sure that my Z slide there was square to the tabletop in both the X and Y directions. I then reset the router back onto the Z plate and made sure it was also square to the tabletop. The machine's now nicely adjusted. The last thing I had to do after that was to square the router to the table, or should I say actually make sure that the X and Y were square to one another. And I was able to do that using the 3-4-5 triangle method. Now one last job I need to do is I need to upgrade this particular piece of my cable management. I'm not going to do anything flash. I'm not going to put energy chain on it. I'm going to go back to my sticks because they work perfectly well and I don't see any point in changing it. In actual fact, you could call it a lack of energy chain given how lazy I am. So I'm going to leave that for another episode, and it'll be a good opportunity to show you how simple cable management can be. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed watching the new carriages go onto the machine. Don't forget to join me next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Cheers. When I design something, I like to let my mind run free. Unfortunately, last time it didn't come back.